Looks like we're live, guys. We can start to see some of the attendees trickle in. So we'll give it just about 60 seconds or so because we've got a pretty packed agenda in a short amount of time. So this is going to be really exciting stuff. I see them all coming in little by little. Welcome, everyone. Hey, everybody.
Welcome. Good morning or good
Yeah,
evening, wherever you are.
Why don't you drop in the chat, guys? Where are you joining from? City, country. Um, let's see here. We got the chat open. Awesome. So we get another 30 seconds. Everybody trickle in and we'll get started. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the State of Social Listening 2024. This is part one of a three-part series, and I'm really excited to be able to share this moment with you all. We
Tan, just really quick, it looks like the chat's disabled.
really? Okay, hey, good point. Let me I see it says, yeah, chat disabled. Okay.
yeah. It looks like people are jumping into the Q&A area.
Q&A section. I guess maybe let's use that for now, just so that we don't have to. Let's see here. Yeah, hey guys, let's use the Q&A. Let's use the Q&A for now, I guess. That's such a just triple check here. So this is a good time to also mention some of the housekeeping. So one of the things is, okay, so if the chat, it looks like the chat, I'm not sure why the chat isn't enabled here, but what I will do is just say, okay, wait. Is it working now? Thumbs up, maybe? Or see here.
Yeah, but
Now, maybe?
I
Yeah.
just tried. I just tried every.
Welcome everyone. I
Yeah,
see Frank's
cool.
message. All right, we're winning.
All right.
So yeah, great. This is exactly what the first 5 minutes is for, is like housekeeping, make sure everything's working. Hello, I see Joe in the chat. Okay, great. We're okay, guys. All right. So just a couple of little quick things, like if for some reason we get disconnected, like stay on the line. If I were to drop, if one of the speakers were to drop, just stick around. We'll use the same link that we joined from in case of emergencies. But yeah, so this is a great like epitome of what this conversation is supposed to be about. It's informal. It's an informal discussion. There's no script. There's nothing really that is being steered here. So this is a fantastic opportunity for everybody who's joining from all over really the world here. I would see it's pretty global. Um, to get involved, man. Get involved, become part of the conversation. You're all part of this ecosystem, and we want to warmly welcome you to it. My name's Tan Sukhera. I'm going to be your host today. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called PR, which is a public relations and communications measurement consultancy with a major emphasis on social media content. Shout out to AMEC, I want to say, the International Association for the Measurement and Evaluation of Communication, and the Barcelona Principles, which is it's like the Ten Commandments basically of like communications measurement. And part of that is that social media can and should be measured alongside of all communications efforts. So you'll notice that there's a lot of like public relations and communication sort of like representation inside of this event, not just from myself, but also as the wonderful sponsors here. PR on the Go, We Lead Comms, ComPro, Wag the Dog. This is probably a great like moment to say a shout out to some of the sponsors here that kind of just supported the initiative in general. I think it's worth it to also just kick it off by saying like Melanie, Vicky, Leonidas, the PR on the comms, the PR on the Go team, everybody on part of that community. Thank you for all your support. Really appreciate you guys. Want to give you a good like plug here. It's a fantastic community. Everybody should be part of it, I think. Especially if you're in PR and comms and you're a creator or you're in the arts and culture scene. or you're a startup, early sort of backed ventures, that sort of a thing. The We Lead Comms folks, Mike Klein, looking at you. Thank you for everything. The Philippe Bormans and Wag the Dog, amazing, like legend in the space. And speaking of legends, Faye Shapiro and Compro. So just honestly, shout outs to everybody that made this happen. Really, really appreciate you guys. So with all that, I think maybe one of the things I also want to encourage is the Q&A, to use it. Maybe even throw in your questions from now if you have stuff on your mind that you want to talk about from a social listening, social intelligence perspective. I'm going to be taking a moment to highlight the speakers and give you guys a chance to meet them and see them and talk to them and just let them say hello as well. And then we're gonna get into an informal chat, and I'll just sort of be steering the conversation. So I want to see where that goes. Hi, Melanie, I see you there in the chat there. Okay, so let's kick things off with a little bit of a highlight of the speakers and their bios. Up front, we've got Frank. Hey, Frank.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really excited to be a part of this. Yeah, I'm social intelligence lead for Nestle. I've been here for about a year, and I've been in the social intelligence space for probably about 11 or 12 years now. So really love talking about everything social listening and social intelligence. So
I love it. We're so excited to have you. Thank you, Frank. And next up, we've got Khalil.
Good morning, everyone. Tan, thank you for putting this on. I really appreciate being here. One of the co-founders of Nichefire, and we are a predictive cultural intelligence platform, helping businesses predict and understand the impacts of cultural trends on their business. Happy to hear talk about this. I think it's important for us as industry insiders to have these public conversations to push the agenda of social intelligence and social listening. It's just great information and great opportunities for businesses and brands to take advantage of consumer data from in the wild, right?
100%. Shout out to Nichefire. Next up, we've got Angie. Hey, Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie Kitman. I am the Social Listening Intelligence Manager at NVIDIA. I've been in the social media industry for a bit over 10 years now, with the latter half of my career being focused on social intelligence. Super passionate about this field and super excited to be here and talk with all of you. So thanks for having me.
Amazing. And last but not least, we've got Ari.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it. I'm a professor of digital media and marketing at Carnegie Mellon University. I teach a bunch of different classes focused on AI, digitization, and social data. Also do research on blockchain and built a couple centers and a couple of exec ed programs, one focusing on the chief digital officer role. One of the classes that I started teaching back in 2010 has to do with measuring social data. So we get graduate students from across CMU, from a variety of different programs and disciplines, and we basically throw them in front of a client. We bring in 14 brands every year, and the students go to work and sort of collecting, analyzing, assessing, sometimes putting machine learning concepts on top of social data and coming up with recommendations for their clients.
Amazing. All right. Well, look, I mean, that's a quick like bio spotlight on the speakers. So we're gonna just give it away to you guys. I think Frank, if we can kick it off with you here to start off. The first question has to do with something that's been huge on everybody's minds. It's artificial intelligence, like huge buzzword of the year. Let's talk a little bit about AI and sort of the efficiency when it comes to like distributing insights throughout the organization. This is a huge organization. How do you do that? What's your experience in it, and what sort of tips have you got for the listeners?
sure, yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously, it's the biggest thing of the last year or so in conversations about the space is the impact of AI. I guess first and foremost, just for context of because I've been asked about AI a lot over the last year, and I always kind of couch it at first by saying like, I am not an AI expert. I'm not building, models, and I'm not, I'm not the back end person that's building all these amazing things. What I am is an end user, that I've had the opportunity over the last year, since I started last February with Nestle USA, to really pressure test all of the tools. Every major social listening tool or social intelligence tool you can think of, we've been doing a lot of assessments just to get an understanding of what are the ways that you are leveraging AI to be able to help me distribute those insights across a large organization, as well as just get to more kind of fine-tuned insight, as opposed to just kind of the positive, negative, and neutral sentiment, right? Can we get further along in kind of classifying the conversation and segmenting the conversation through those those AI methodologies? So yeah, I mean, what I've been able to do, to give the context of Nestle, my role is within Nestle USA. Nestle is a pretty decentralized organization. While I will sometimes partner with the broader Nestle network, Nestle Integrated Marketing Services, that's kind of a shared service across the globe, or I might share best practices with someone from, the Nestle Canada team or the Nestle, Switzerland team or whatever it might be. My role is Nestle USA. So we've got about 30 brands across 7 or 8 different product categories, and roughly about 450 marketers. And that includes the insights research the insight research team that is going to be really looking to dive deep into brand perception and product perception for their specific brands that they focus on. It's the social community managers who need those daily insights around what is relevant right now, what's trending right now that they might want to jump into, or at least inform their content strategies. And then R&D and innovation teams that are looking at what's the next product that we need to be thinking about, right? And how does a cultural trend potentially lead to a product idea, right? And so, with all that being said, where I'm seeing the efficiencies of AI is that if you are leveraging the tools that really are doing AI well, they're not only making it easier to find the insight, they're making it easier to just distribute that out to a large group. And an example would be that when I build out a dashboard within our social listening tools, I've got a text box at the top of that dashboard that just gives the 3 or 4 bullet points, the observations that the Gen AI has discovered from that day's conversation or that week's conversation, whatever the specific stakeholder needs, right? Whatever cadence they need. And then on top of that, I'm also setting up the automated alerts so that it's not just here's your dashboard and please remember to take a look at this every day. It's going to show up in your inbox as a PDF version of that dashboard every day, every week, whatever the cadence is that you'd like, to kind of remind you, as you have a very busy schedule, thinking about a million other things, that you need to be checking what's going on in social, right? And so now by having, even though I'm a small team, I can support 450 brand managers and innovation and R&D folks and social community managers, and let them know what's going on in their specific social media space, whether it be coffee or chocolate or frozen meals or whatever product category they're in, and telling them what's going on in culture around that space through automation, along with that AI text box that's so important because they might not have any time to scroll down into every widget that I have trained them how to click through and click into every word cloud and see what the spikes are, right? They might have 2 minutes before they go into a meeting. So they just need to know what's going on right now in social. And so, they can quickly get their 3 or 4 bullet points and go into that meeting feeling informed. If they have further questions, of course, that's why we're training them on how to conduct their own kind of basic searching within the dashboards we build for them. And then hopefully that leads to even deeper questions where they need my team that's kind of more the expertise and kind of the broader analysis of that social conversation. And so if I didn't have the efficiency of the AI to be able to answer 75% of their questions through just automation and the AI generated observations, I would need an army of people to be able to support 450 marketers. Instead, my team can have 75% of those questions answered and then be ready for the deeper kind of meatier analysis. That is where we're going to be providing more value anyway to the organization. So I'm really excited about the efficiency that's already there, and there's even more coming in that space. Just every time I talk to a social listening tool provider, I find out a new feature that's like, okay, that changes the calculus on who I think is actually the strongest tool right now, and it's gonna keep getting faster and more innovative over time.
That's so real. I have to say, like, just to jump in here, like the speed of social, basically, right? It's like, and
Yeah.
organizations need to evolve, especially those data partners that I personally I've been able to work for in my career. But I mean, we've got someone from that space. We've got a data partner with Khalil right here as well. So I think that, yeah, it's is that one of the major challenges? I see a question that had come in talking about the different aspects of other social platforms and like how what differentiates them. So let me throw that on the table.
Yeah, I think it's important to really kind of piggyback off of what Frank said. And I know I'm the AI tool guy on the panel, but a lot like Frank, I'm not the coder of the company. I have a wonderful team around us. And you guys might be used to seeing my business partner, Michael, do a lot of this. And he is really the brains and the heartbeat of our organization. But with that being said, I think it's important to understand like how you want to use the AI to impact your research or the work that you're doing, because what we understood is that people like Frank and others that are doing this type of research for their businesses are spending a lot of time, especially trying to understand the cultural side of what you can pull out of the social media conversations. And to us, sometimes those insights are like really the unknown unknowns, or the goal that you can really base many different types of business activations off of. So not just like marketing and social media campaigns, but really things that can impact business growth. And to understand what type of troubles or pains that people were having in trying to find those insights helped us to tailor our tool to do just that. So the question around, the different, different insights or the different things you pull from different social media platforms, I think really speaks to why we have a multi-channel approach to how we're applying our AI tools to culture, right? We're not just looking at, social media data. We're looking at search data, news and media, all these different digital mediums and channels, because I think it leaves breadcrumbs, or it leaves an understanding of what that culture could actually be. And when we're talking about culture in Nichefire, we're speaking about like the common language, the common behaviors, those commonalities amongst people online. So I think you especially have to have a diverse view of that from the social platforms, because each of our social platforms have their own unique identity and ability to deal with the users of that particular platform. So being able to have AI that's tuned in to understand that and help build a understanding of that, I think is really important. And we just aim to help the industry, like I said, push the narrative that this type of information can be used well beyond outside of just marketing. It can impact the entire business.
That brings me to like the questions around like AI and social listening in workflow. Angie, maybe I could direct it to you. Is how do you incorporate like AI into your workflow on a day-to-day?
Yeah, so I use a variety of tools. So there's, we have our tool, we use Sprinkler. So Sprinkler AI Plus is their new Gen AI tool within Sprinkler, which has been great. And it will summarize out features or like just different points and data points that we're wanting to look at. I do love, like, for example, like with sentiment, being able to track and see, like, when there is a spike in positive or negative sentiment, like what are the drivers for that? It's been super helpful for our teams too, just in like trying to save time. We run really lean, and so, time is kind of a precious resource for us. With that in mind, though, ChatGPT, and also we use Writer. So those aren't social listening specific tools, but they are just Gen AI tools that have saved me a lot of time and helped a lot with just my overall workflow. So ChatGPT, I use it a lot for keyword expansions, just research too on different companies that we might want to be tracking. Writer has been great for arranging lists of keywords into Boolean logic, so I don't have to do that manually. It has a great summarize feature too. So if you keep seeing like a video pop up and you don't want to watch the 30-minute video or use another tool to analyze it, Writer can do that, and will give you, again, those clear data points on what's it talking about, like who are the panelists, what are like the key things to take away from it. And also just fixing report copy, because afterwards, like I like to make sense of the data for my stakeholders, and so making sure that it's written well and is going to be understandable for them it's another great tool that I've used. So those are the ones I like.
I love that. And Ari, I think maybe this is a good time to segue into some of the student projects that you've been working on. I see you answered a question already in the chat, but maybe just talking a little bit about how AI kind of like proliferates itself into the work that you guys are doing with your teams of students.
Sure. So we got to unpack AI first, right? So if you look at the sort of all the elements of AI, which includes machine learning, we've been doing that for 8-9 years, whether it's clustering analysis using random forests to understand and assess influencers, micro-influencers, nano-influencers, and looking at all the various different attributes associated with what a brand might be looking for. So just to give you an example, some of the projects. So one of the largest hotel chains, influencer analysis to identify region, purpose, all of the various different types of marketing metrics around opportunity to see, cost per impression, all of these sorts of things to identify the right influencer for the right campaign, for the right purpose, right? Those sorts of things is really important because you have thousands of different types of influencers. Which ones do you pick and why, right? And now that we have micro and nano influencers, they're very, very specific in terms of the function. So whether you want awareness, conversion, assessment, introduction to new audiences, those sorts of things are really important to understand and assess. We did a project for a very large organization around event modeling. So we do a lot of event studies, which is really fascinating. It's a statistical technique to look at if you see a huge propagation of mentions associated with potentially like a natural disaster or something like that, there's all subsequent events that occur because of that, right? So you might have a natural shock like the Haiti earthquake, and then invariably 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, you'll see an uptake of something like cholera, right? Because of the devastation associated with all of the utilities that are coming into the region. So understanding what that event window is, right? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks, 4 weeks? What have you? Those sorts of things, all those subsequent shocks is really important for a company to be organized associated with delivering a response, right? How many, and we actually did this with the National Guard, believe it or not. So looking at when do I have to have boots on the ground? What supplies do I need? How do I need to care for a group of population fairly quickly is really interesting. Just lately, I mean, we've been doing a lot with a lot of very well-known brands around personalization and image assessment. And so now that you have machine vision, not applied to cars, but applied to looking through short-form videos, you can do some phenomenal analysis. And I know you have Chelsea coming on in a few weeks, and Chelsea used to be one of my students. She's fantastic. But the idea of, listen, I don't want to have 50 people looking through short-form videos to identify where my product is placed and how it's placed. I can just have an intelligence agent do that for me and provide a summary of all the output. So we're doing a lot more with generative AI and, of course, ChatGPT, and something my students are all fascinated with and interested in, right? So we're and of course now that Llama is sort of open source, we're shoving a lot of into that to see what happens, right? So it's very interesting to see what this massive amount of data can be done with when you look at some of these generative AI and large language models in terms of summaries and storylines.
Yeah.
Some people, I saw there's somebody was saying that we're going to see billion-dollar companies with just 10 people in them because of the heavy lifting that AI is doing these days. But I love
Yeah,
it.
valuation maybe. I don't know about
That's
revenue, right?
yeah.
Well,
That's a fair point.
I think that actually it's good. It kind of segued into what Joe mentioned in the chat of like, you don't lose the human element, the human part of social media when analyzing, right? I think that it's really important to right now, when we see new elements of AI that are able to help us be more efficient and smarter with our analysis, that's fantastic. But then you still need to have the human being that's looking at it and saying, okay, does that make sense as a recommendation for my business stakeholder? And you know, the difference between an observation and a true insight, right? There's it's really important to make sure that the way that I kind of couch up all of the, or frame up all of the little text boxes that I was talking about earlier, is like, these are the observations that the AI is going to be providing you as you walk into your brand marketing meeting, right? It's not necessarily that every single observation is going to be a perfect opportunity for your brand. That's where the human comes in, right? And so the way that I've kind of framed it up internally is that 2023 and early 2024 for me has been the year of identifying the right tools and technologies and processes to kind of build the capability that I'm building within Nestle USA. 2024 is about implementing and getting it out there to everybody, and then late 2024, early 2025, that's where it's measuring the effectiveness of and the accuracy of some of those observations and predictions that the different tools that we're bringing in are providing, right? Khalil, get ready, because we leverage Nichefire and we love it. We're also going to be thinking about from the lens of, okay, how accurate are the predictions, right? And so it's that you always need to have that balance of AI can make things much more efficient for you and get you much smarter and faster. You also need to have the human that is just understanding, okay, does this make sense for our business, or is this just kind of a nice to know observation, right? And you have to do that, every day, all day.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the shout out, Frank, for sure. I think that human element, I was talking with Michael recently, and it was just like, that's the magic of the work that we're doing, is like we're speeding up that research part of it so that that human element has more time to find those insights, because really identifying like those unknown unknowns is really like that first start of gathering that insight and putting together the data to tell that story, to embark change, right? Whether it's a new strategy, a new product, whatever, you're going to have the data to back it up. And that's where that human element comes in, literally to drive that insight and take it the rest of the way. I don't think we're going to be in a space where we're going to be 100% reliant on some generative output to make our decisions wholeheartedly. Now you do see a lot of marketers now, a lot more content that you may have seen before on LinkedIn, and that's just because of the access to generative AI just to everyone. But I think what's going to happen too now with as we analyze it and as we do social listening is that we're going to have to be able to understand and pick up those nuances in the content. Is it developed? Is this a generated content? Is this a real video? Is it not? Those are the type of questions that we'll have to start asking pretty soon. So it's just a telltale sign to how quickly the industry is moving. But again, having that human element there is definitely how you end up taking it home. I was talking with you, Tan. I brought up that same scenario, right? Is it an insight, or is it just something you found? And I like that, I'm an old sports guy. I like to have that triple threat approach when I do find something. And it's like, hey, what are 3 different ways you can put this into action? Like right now, right? You have to help people see, you know, where to take it the next way, because that's where the beauty of it comes. And, you know, people at Nestle, I mean, Frank said it's like, you know what, 400 something marketers or something like that. Some of those people have the brightest minds in the world. So you give them those ideas and you let them kick that around, and you leverage the AI to, you know, speed things up. You know, one thing that keeps coming up in our conversation today is running lean and time, right? You're gonna have to have some tool to kind of help, because you got to still go as fast as you were, actually faster, right? So AI is going to be that that tool or that piece that's going to help you do that for sure moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Khalil, the one of the things that's really interesting is also like what happens when things from an AI perspective, like I don't want to be like the devil's advocate or anything, but like what happens when it goes wrong? Like
Mhm.
what do we do then? And so I think that's a would be a cool thing to kind of address as well. Like what do we do? Guys,
Mhm.
you guys are the leading minds in this. You tell me. Angie, I mean, imagine like leadership. You guys have some of the best leadership in the world right now. It's one of the most profitable businesses in the world right now. Um, you know, where do you think this would go?
Hmm. I
Put you on the
think
spot.
I know that's a heavy question. But what I was gonna say is I think it's just like being mindful of how you're using AI and just like being mindful of how it fits into your life and just overall business and learning to use it ethically. I know my company as well as like other companies have really taken a step at working towards like that trustworthy AI and also like trying to build out like the ways that they're trying to incorporate it without, leading to issues with it, especially like in the generative AI space. I did want to touch on one thing that Khalil had said about the actionable, finding like an actionable insight. I thought that that was like just like a really great point and just something that I think AI tools are great. You know, they do find those insights for you, but then that human aspect of being able to take that and then see like, what can I do to make this useful for my business? What can I do to take this a step further? That's what I think is like the really key important and what we as like social intelligence, managers and directors and whatever our role is, like what is the challenge for us is like how can I bring this insight and make it beneficial for my company. I like to use this restaurant example whenever I talk about this, just of like, maybe you just opened up a restaurant and everyone, you have like 3.5 stars. And what does that mean? And like, what you see people are talking about, like how much they love the burger, how much they love this burger. But then you realize that if you look into the insights, that maybe there's something that's trending, something that's coming up very often where it's like people don't like the atmosphere, people don't like other aspects. And so those are like those little nuggets that you can find within our data and thanks to AI as well, that you can make changes and actually present that up to leadership to be able to fix things.
Ari, I see you like just on fire in the chat here. Answer questions. The question about leadership, like, is that something that the students can also address? Like, how an insight would like, how do you predict that an insight's going to be valuable, or like information or observation is going to be an insight, then therefore valuable to the leadership, operationalizing these insights that are coming out of social media? What's your kind of take on that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to multitask. And I got my AI agent actually writing responses for me, so it's not actually me. But so this transition where we're moving from intuition to data-driven decision making is challenging. It's really hard. And I just had a class yesterday with my digital transformation students. We were talking about Spotify, and we're looking at digital transformation in the music industry. And I put up a slide on Clive Davis. It's probably the most well-known, probably the most famous talent agent in the music industry ever. The dude was incredibly successful. And I tell my students, I don't think this guy ever used a spreadsheet. I'm pretty sure he didn't use any predictive algorithm or any AI, but could you produce a Clive Davis.ai with all the data? And they really scratched their head to think a little bit about it. And we have all this data. If you go into Spotify, you have tons of data on what music preference people are listening to, and people next to you are listening to. And that's why they give you Wrapped at the end of the year, and you understand these things. You can break down music into the content, the lyrics, the cadence, the tempo, the instruments, all those sorts of things. That all becomes data. So maybe you can do it, but I think what they came up with at the end was probably you can do it, but it's an assist. It's augmentation, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to take that. Well, at this point in time, you're never going to take that human out of the loop associated with not just distrust, but what if it skews to one population, right? So humans have this unique ability to make inference when data is missing. With AI systems, everybody says, oh, they're hallucinating. No, they're not hallucinating. They're just making the best guess of the data that's been presented to them, right? So it's this weird challenge that we have around, would you ever go and have a surgical procedure from a robot that's using AI? It's a really hard thing to think about, but I think we're going to be in this weird pattern for the next foreseeable future where we have human assist and human augmentation with AI systems. And I have a very difficult time with the notion that people say, oh, it's going to be net positive in terms of job. I have a hard time with that. In certain industries, it's going to be a net negative. Right? AI will take over certain jobs that are frankly routine in nature. And we're going to have to figure out what to do with that from a societal perspective. But I think sort of next generation of folks, and Frank and Angeline, are all going to be using AI as a mechanism, just like we use spreadsheets as a mechanism to do our job more effectively, more predictively, right? More concisely, if you will. There's going to be all these tools that are going to be they're going to be peppered with. They're going to have to make decisions on which ones work best for them. Right?
Yeah, and I think that gets back to, like as I'm rolling out a lot of these tools that are able to provide, leverage the AI to provide those observations, my main role over the next, few months is going to be meeting with all of those leaders of the teams. It's like, hey, we've now kicked off these different, daily daily recaps that are being brought to you through these tools. What's your feedback, right? Have which ones of those observations have been very insightful for you? Which ones of those observations were like, don't care, right? Not helpful, right? And that's for any tool that I bring in, that's going to be the feedback that I want. I might have my own opinion based on what I'm seeing, but ultimately I'm supporting the brand marketers and the innovation folks and all of them. So I need to know, okay, from your end user perspective, is this extremely helpful and right on the money every time, or is it actually just kind of noise and it's not really that helpful? And then I need to take that feedback back to the tool providers and say, okay, what can we do? Right. So that's, I think you're always going to have that kind of that need to not only have the analysts like myself in there looking at it and kind of measuring how effective and how accurate things are, but also really it becomes, ultimately for me at least, it becomes my stakeholders, right? I'm supporting them at the end of the day, and they need to see the value in it, even more so than me. So.
Love that. I think I like to add one more thing to that too, as far as like having that human element, and AI is not going to completely just take over anything in these spaces, because like you were alluding to before, Tan, it has the ability to be wrong too sometimes. So you're going to need that human element. But I think you also have to have that understanding of the type of insights or the differentiation of the insights you're bringing in. And that's why we like to focus in on that culture piece, right? Because I think when you understand those cultural signals that are emerging, it helps you as that leader in the organization pinpoint that insight to the right person that can help take that cultural insight to the next level. So if there's a play on sustainability or something like that, and you know you got an analyst or someone that's really, really good in that space, maybe they need those ideas to kind of take it that next step, or diversity, inclusion, or whatever you're trying to look at when it comes to culture. But again, being able to kind of use AI to differentiate the types of insights that you're pulling in and the type of stories that you're trying to tell, I think really kind of helps make it come full circle. Because again, that culture piece is weird, right? It's almost like understanding like inside jokes or something like that, right? Where it's like you have to be a part of that group to really kind of catch it and understand it and be in it while it's happening, right? So how do you capture that or see that from an outsider looking in and then use it to your benefit? And I think when you understand that you can have insights coming in that way, it's easier for you to line them up in the organization the way that you need them to, so that that person can finish taking them the rest of the way. Because, you know, we all know we're all different. We all have different experiences that, you know, make a decision on whether I put stevia in my coffee or is it going to be cane sugar, right? That's, you know, we all go through those on a daily basis. And that's the beauty of, you know, looking into social and looking out into, I like to say in the wild, right? And studying people like in the wild and being able to see people, you know, unbiased, really reacting and being emotional online about particular things. It's just great insight and you know, kind of studying folks from that perspective. So
I couldn't agree with Khalil more. I think you know, we've seen so many projects come in focusing on BIPOC and LGBTQIA issues and those sorts of things. But when you think about it, it's kind of interesting because when you think about marketing, right? We're still very much sort of, when we think about sort of the assessment, just looking at gender, right? We do things that are binary. And there's a world out there that's, you know, things gender is fluid.
yep.
So, but we think about things, what do males want? What do females want? Those sorts of, here's a category. And if you're working for a large beauty brand, they have to be very careful about how they do their messaging.
Yep.
So they have to understand cultural sensitivity, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it really matters. And it's going to help, in my opinion, it's going to help everything be okay, right? I mean, it gets really sticky when you get into those conversations or making these assumptions, right? You know, I'll just be frank, you know, in the Black community, you always hear the criticism from, you know, different commercials or types of marketing that they receive, right? And you slowly starting to see more and more inclusion and more representation showing up in the marketing, in the movies, in that vein. So, and it's strictly because of that, Ari, right? Everyone doesn't look at everything the same way, and we have to be a little bit more inclusive in that, and taking that into consideration especially when we're creating marketing materials, right? So,
to give you a perfect example, I apologize, but this is a really interesting subject. I mean, when you look from a healthcare perspective, right? You look at healthcare, and you understand, assess underrepresented minorities. There's a distinct difference in terms of life expectancy within specific regions because they don't seek care for preventative health care, right? And that's because the medical community doesn't look like them, doesn't talk like them, right? Doesn't represent their cultural background. So there's hesitancy there. And when there's hesitancy there, you see a marked difference in terms of quality of health.
Yep.
And that's really important to understand and assess.
Yeah, absolutely. Wholeheartedly. But the great thing is that that's how, like that, and I think those type of stories around AI and, you know, machine learning and how it's helping do those things, it needs to be amplified versus it's going to take my job or take over, right? It's going to make so much more opportunities for people just in general, lives better, but also in the job market, it's going to create new jobs as well. I mean, you can become a prompt engineer and make, I don't know what Netflix posted, or somebody posted a $900,000 a year prompt engineer job or something crazy like that. So job market's going to open up in new ways as well. So
I see some really cool questions coming in, and just before that, I have a quick question for Angie for you. So let's say you've discovered like some insights about your brand. Like, let's just take it down to like, basics for a sec. Like, what do you do next? Like, walk us through this.
Yeah, so I like to try to figure out, what have I uncovered and who is this going to be useful for? So, first, taking those different insights, figuring out like what are the actionable pieces from that. So, similar to like what Khalil said, is it really an insight or is it something that I just found? And so, the definition for that for me for an insight would be, yeah, is there an actionable like piece that I could take from this? And then figuring out like who in the company or like in my org that I can actually like send these insights to, and who can I like make sense of this data for. I'm a really big advocate for trying to, expand social listening outside of just like, specific orgs. Like I feel like anyone can really be, find this data useful. And so figuring out like who are the right people to tag in, figuring out like what are the different data points that are going to make sense for them, which are the data points that they're going to find most useful. And then also I like to add recommendations based on what I'm seeing. So yeah, maybe I'm not the person creating, our GPU, or maybe I'm not the person like that's actually like part of that design process, but just based off what I'm seeing from, our consumer or from, the voices online that we're listening to, hearing their actual inputs is like what I like to share. And so I always like to say that, social listening's like the just kind of like our unbiased, like unfiltered version of like hearing our customers' voices and just hearing what they have to say. So it's like the unsolicited feedback that we're getting from them. So it's valuable. It's stuff that I think teams across the board could be find useful. So really it's trying to make a report, make sense of the data, and then figure out who are the right people to send it to and get involved
I love
and figure
that.
out how we can work with them in the long run.
100%. Question here from Joe. Frank, I'm going to give this one to you. How do you prove the value of social intelligence within your organization or to your clients? Let's call them partners in this case for Nestle. Our industry still seems to struggle somewhat with this aspect. It's a kind of interesting one.
Yeah, sure. So I think that it really, first and foremost, depends on the specific stakeholder and what their needs are, right? So if if I'm supporting a social community management team that is thinking about what content that they are going to be posting about today, tomorrow, this week, then the value of the social intelligence reporting that we can provide to them is going to be around, okay, did they find something within the observations that my reports are providing that actually sparked a really interesting insight that created a content opportunity, and then they saw their engagement, spike through the roof because they hit on a moment, right? That's the kind of the short term value for that stakeholder. For a brand marketer, it's more about, okay, did the insights that we provided through our reporting and our tools, did that provide a product opportunity, right? Because at the end of the day, they need to move share, right? They need to move the needle from the bottom line, right? And so ultimately, they're looking to me to say, okay, what's the next, I'm DiGiorno brand manager. What's the next topping on pizza that I need to be thinking about? Right. Stouffer's brand manager. What are the new insights related to different flavors, different types of ethnic food, or different kind of spicy flavors, things like that. What do I need to be thinking about to put a new product on shelves? Right. It's very different use case than the social community manager who's like, what's the cool trend I need to know about right now that I might put some content out for, right? Innovation and R&D teams similarly around the new products that we might want to be testing out and putting on shelves. And I think ultimately then it gets even broader to, I'm working very closely and bringing, the Niche Fire team in on this project, but working very closely with the foresight teams within Nestle that are thinking more 3 to 5 to even 10 years down the line around bigger cultural movements, right? And so we're providing our reporting to them in a completely different fashion, where if they're not really caring about what's trending right now today, right? But if they want to see a pattern in some of those trending moments, to say, what's the why behind that? What was the why behind girl dinner, right? And what opportunity is there for that at Nestle for a new product line potentially, right? And so they're looking at the broader scope to say, okay, if we see a pattern in your social reporting from the what they call fast culture, then they can look at the slower cultural movement to say, what's the why behind that, and what do we need to be thinking about in terms of the way consumers are changing over the next 3 to 5 years, which might be a multi-million-dollar opportunity if there's a whole new product line or a whole new brand that Nestle might want to be putting out there, right? So I look at it as there's no kind of one formula to show the value of social listening and social intelligence. It's about hitting the stakeholder group that you're talking to with something that's valuable for them specifically. And then you just keep on having wins all throughout your organization saying, hey, the social community managers used our reports to hit this trend and this trend and this trend, and that increased engagement. The innovation teams saw our reports and boom, they've got new products on shelves. The foresight team are seeing our reports and they're identifying a whole new product line or new brand that's going to be coming out in the next few months or years, right? So it really depends on who your stakeholder is.
Yeah.
I wanted to add on to that really quick. So I think right now we're in this like really great time where we're starting to see more organizations starting to invest in social listening, but it's still oftentimes just like a one-person team. And so I want to encourage anyone who's in that situation or anyone who's trying to bring social listening to the organization to definitely like dream big for your social listening program, but definitely start with like a minimum viable product. So like basically map out that journey and what you envision for it. What would you like to see? What is and start with like a use case, like a really good use case for your company where something that your company can really benefit from. And then from there, like after you've built trust, trust is like completely important in this too. Try to find advocates or executive sponsors that could help build trust with other people within the organization for your vision. So that trust aspect and like trying to prove things, as Frank said, with like just clear wins that you're able to document over time, will really have a really impactful change in like the shift of how leadership starts to see social listening and its value too.
Yeah, I like to add on to that too, Angeline, is you got to be brave, especially if you're like 1 or 2 person operation. You have to be brave enough to put that together, just like she said, and take it to the top, right? Don't kick it around to lower management or people that you're comfortable with having that conversation about. You got to take it to the people that can actually, those change makers within the organization. Because what's happening there that I'm starting to find out is that, there's a lot of different stakeholders that are dependent on different types of insights from different places that you might not be aware of. There could be agencies involved, consultants, people coming in that already have their ear for that. So you gotta find your seat at the table. And once you get there, they'll start seeing like, hey, we can get this stuff in-house. We can get this stuff internal, and now your department's growing a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's to bring that back full circle. That's exactly what we're in the process of doing right now, right? While I might have some internal support from our shared services that are across the globe, really I'm a one-man show when it comes to Nestle USA. And so what I've been able to do is just start to get some of those VP level and above leaders that are saying, hey, look at that win that we just gave to the social community team. Look at that win that we just gave to the research teams, right? And then once they see a bit of a pattern of that, now it's like, okay, so do you really want this to be a one-man show that's trying to support 450 marketers? or should we actually have someone sitting with each product category, each brand division, right? And so it's a slow build, but you're starting to get those head nods the more that you can show the wins and get those internal cheerleaders.
Absolutely. Love it.
Ari, you're sending in you're sending in the troops into these corps.
So I think one of the challenges and what I'm hearing folks talk about is this idea of operationalizing social data, right? And Angie's very much astute in the sense that you have to identify sort of an incremental sort of pathway to add value, make sure it's measurable, demonstrable, repeatable, those sorts of things. But there's a huge unknown here. So you have to explain complexity to a variety of different folks in terms of what is a value. So we've worked with a lot of folks in terms of understanding how to add social data to transactional data or sales data, other forms of data, to really figure out how to include this not as the be-all de facto source of information, but a combinatorial sort of effect with other data that's out there to really understand sort of companies holistically. But it kind of dovetails into and sort of hits really hard this whole idea of the digital transformation of the organization, right? So if you don't have a mechanism associated with normalizing data, I did marketing analytics for a large tech company, and it was really fascinating because every single team was measuring things differently. How do you sort of normalize it to one sort of metric around how the marketing is doing for the organization if every group is measuring things differently? Right? So by being a collaborator, for lack of a better term, it's a little bit overused these days, and really understanding how things come together around sort of omni-channel management associated with that customer sort of interaction, and that touch point is really key and really important.
Yeah.
But once again, you've got to show the economics associated with this, or the future economics associated with this. Otherwise, everybody would be like, oh, that's fascinating. How does it move the needle?
Right. Yeah. And to your point, I know we're wrapping up, but if I only focused on just the social community managers and my wins at the end of the year were, hey, we had these 3 viral moments with a whole lot of likes and comments and shares, then the senior leadership would say, okay, who cares? At the end of the day, did we sell product? Right. And so you have to be able to think about all your different stakeholder groups and what's going to be ultimately most important to them.
Guys, this is incredible. We still have people here listening intently right to the last few seconds left in the event. So that's got to be a huge testament to you, amazing speakers, you thought leaders in the space. Guys, this is a part of an ecosystem. So everybody that's here and that's speaking, you're all important. So please connect with each other, keep the conversation going. I see that there's some connections being made in the chats as well. I love to see that because that's exactly what this is all about. We've got 2 more parts of the series coming up for the state of social intelligence. If you guys haven't connected with me directly on LinkedIn, I'm happy to do so as well. And last but not least, huge thank you, Angie, Khalil, Ari, Frank, for all your input. You guys are fantastic.
Thank you for the invitation, Dan. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. It's fantastic.
It's a pleasure. We'll see you guys all again soon. Cheers,
Very
then,
cool.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Take care.